Hi, everyone from Reciprocity. It's so good for you to join us today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day. I know everyone's gearing up for fourth quarter and it's a crazy time of the year. I promise you this will be worth your time. So thank you for joining us today because we're going to talk about the purpose of what you do day in and day out. So many of your friends, thank you for coming again and hearing another presentation from us. Today, I'm going to talk about your future world of branded merch today. And we're going to see what's happened in the world of merch. And then my friend Aaron Kucheraway is going to join us about the 20-minute mark. And we're going to talk about how these things work together with commonsku to answer any of your questions. The cool news is within 45 minutes, you're basically going to be out of here, but you're going to get a wealth of knowledge and information. And I hope you will be inspired as we move along. So I'm going to get started right now on your world of branded merch today. One thing I know about you and your world is right now you're too busy to pause and even watch this webinar. So I know how crazy it is out there. This is what the industry feels like. And I have a lot of empathy for you and your role. I hope you can just pause for a minute and join us today because it's really important that those of us that are experts in this, we are so involved in the expertise of it, sometimes that expertise dulls our experience and we can't actually see the magic that's happening in the market and with the medium when we pan out. So that's what I hope to show you today as we walk through some examples. Even as you look at the beautiful stars, astronomer has a different perspective because they're an expert in it than you and I just gazing at the sky and seeing what's happening from a big picture perspective. To back up just a second, the industry was about a $26 billion industry. When you look at the industry from purely corporate merch only, it was neatly divided into e-commerce agencies and program distributors. This was all pre-pandemic. But then something happened, and we all know what that something was, and the world was temporarily closed for a couple of years, it felt like. So the whole world changed. And we as an industry through it also changed forever. And that's actually a pretty good thing, but we're building on a really good foundation. So here's what I mean by that today. The market's relationship with our medium and what we sell has also changed forever too. And that's the best thing. One example is nobody calls what we do swag anymore. And that's a really good thing. In fact, if you do a Google trend search, you'll find out that the term promotional products has declined over the past several years, decade or more. It was at its height back in 2004, and you see that the trend went downward. Even the word swag saw its heyday back in 2009, 2010, and since stumbled a little bit as a search term. But now the search term that has picked up since about 2014 on is the term branded merch or merch. Now, why is that important? Well, this simple nomenclature has incredible potential for what you and I do, for our SEO and our brand identity, for the respect our medium carries. In other words, cheap giveaways versus merch has a completely different resonance to it. For attracting top creative and sales talent to our organizations, do you want to work for a swag company? Do you want to work for a branded merchandise agency who creates cool experiences? There's a difference between those two. And another big difference is how our clients connect with our medium. It's something they already embrace in their lifestyle. Plus, it's how you and I see the market, which I'll get to more in a minute, for its finite versus infinite. The other thing that's happened in the market, how the consumer approaches the market, is there's really been an eroding of the distinction between B2C versus B2B. Forrester called it the rise of the business consumer. Millennial and Gen Z buyers no longer separate their buying experiences in their consumer life to their B2B model. And you know that because you're living and breathing this every day, from the product requests that you get, from the sustainability demands that you get. The world has dramatically changed. So how the world once viewed swag, merchandise, were articles like this: "It's time to stop spending billions on cheap comfort swag," or "The Cotton Tote Crisis," put out by the New York Times. Our headlines really were flooded at a time with articles like this. But now we are seeing, by the way, if you want more on that interview, the author that wrote "Spending Billions on Cheap Comfort Swag," we had her on a podcast. You can check that out later if you'd like. But we've moved on a lot since then. And when you notice the headlines now that are populating all over are things like this: "How Supreme style merch drops are taking over corporate America. If you notice branded merch everywhere, you're not alone. Here's why." It's incredible what's happening with our medium over the past decade, especially the past several years. I interviewed Adam Bluestein, who was a journalist who looked at our industry as an outsider. He's not one of us. He didn't come from the inside, and so he didn't know the ins and outs, but he looked at the industry And he was amazed. He spent 100 hours researching the industry, and he said this, that he found out that branded merch was a unique way to connect, that brands found a way to connect through merchandise that they couldn't even get through social media. And he thoroughly enjoyed researching the industry because it's fascinating what's happening. And you've seen it too. But I have to tell you, as I have seen this change occur over the past several years, it has been phenomenal for our medium. These are our friends at Jaguar, produced a couple of these things. In fact, some of the examples that I'm going to show you here today are produced by distributors. And I'm going to talk more and more about this erosion of B2C versus B2B. You'll see examples, and I'm going to blaze through all of these really quickly because I want to get to our 5 or 6 or 7 points that are going to help elucidate what it is that is most important for you as you talk with clients. But what really surprised me is when you see things like Aldi, the discount grocery chain, launching their own capsule collection, or the Queen dropping her own merch. I had to even pause at some point and go, okay, what is going on in the world of merch? When Fortnite produced a hooded sweatshirt that you can buy for $725, and if you're kind of cheap, then you can actually swing for the t-shirt, which is only $475. Of course, it's a Balenciaga t-shirt, but it's a one color imprinted t-shirt. My point is there's an amazing shift that's happened in the world of branded merch, and it's safe to say that branded merch is having a moment. So how the world now views merch is completely different. Branded merch has become synonymous with products that people will pay a premium for, creating skyrocket demand, scarcity, radical brand love, allowing individual expression, and building bonds of tribal unity, which I'll show you now. So the old swag was stuff we all get. The new merch is the gear that we covet. So branded merch for us, the professionals, and for our clients, it's no longer simply advertising. So here are several new paradigms that are reshaping the future of branded merch. And I really hope it helps undergird your selling strategy moving forward. Number one, merch is not just advertising, it's actually a new press release, instigator, and provocateur. When Panera wanted to increase their soup sales over the summer, which would be really hard to do, soup sales over the summer, usually we would equate soup with winter. And they thought, we can't just release a press release about this new soup collection. What can we do? So they created a swimwear collection, which everyone said, really? A swimwear collection? And that is how it started. This is how it's going. The Panera swimsuit collection was already selling out in no time at all. Again, our friends at Jaguar produced this. Eater Magazine said, really? Oscar Mayer has this latest gimmick. Is it just that? This is how it's going. It quickly sold out. And these things created communication points, these nodes of experience that happen around branded merch. This has been happening for a long time with branded merch. By the way, when you go back into culture, you'll see that at pivotal points in history, branded merch was used as a way to be a provocateur about a message. So this happens not only in our society in terms of the political sphere, but also just in our every day-to-day. All right, number two, merch creates cult-like fervor and followers, forging tribal identity. Now, I'll pause for a minute and say, I know many of you know some of this, but I really want to stress what's happening now is that this is happening with brands all over, that it's no longer about just the big brands that can command this kind of audience. Every band is trying to become a lifestyle brand, and we'll keep moving ahead here. But number two, this fervor in followers, this forging this tribal identity. Authors are getting in on this. When Sally Rooney released her book, her kit went out the door like crazy. Everybody wanted to get a hold of it. When Stranger Things was releasing a season coming up, fans found that they were dropping hints about what was to come in the storyline through a t-shirt. You've probably seen a few popular books that have been out now. The Japanese writer Haruki Murakami wrote a book about the favorite t-shirts he loves. That's all it is. It's his favorite t-shirts he loves, and it's branded shirts from a diner all the way to something he picked up at a conference. And you've also probably seen A24's book, For Promotional Use Only. If you do not have this in your possession and you're in this business, I highly encourage you to get it. I had a wonderful chat with Zoe Beyer, one of the creators of the A24 merch, which we'll talk about here in just a second. What they're doing with merch is nothing short of astounding, and with that film studio. But if you don't have that book, I highly encourage it, because this is the first amazing book I've seen written about merch. We can see these case histories that you can use along with your clients as well. And speaking of A24, I also encourage you to go check out their shop because they're doing some pretty cool things with merch and creating emotional experiences around all these wonderful movies that are coming out. You'll also notice that they rarely ever just do a logo drop on a shirt. They're going to create some kind of experience that creates an emotional connection with one of your favorite movies that you watch. Speaking of movies, one of the favorite ones I've seen recently is Nope. If you haven't seen Nope, go rush out to see it. But check this out. Not only did they create this movie, but they created a merch collection to support the movie. Here's what Daniel, the star of the show, said. The capsule collection that they created with their designer is the bridge. It's a way to translate the film in a new medium, possibly touching people we hadn't reached before. Note that. Jordan Peele using merchandise to reach an audience that he hadn't reached before. That's what I mean by merch has become this new level that we have never seen before. In fact, when they released Encanto, one of the biggest films that they've released in a long while, fans noticed that there was merch, but there was no Louisa merch. Once upon a time, what you and I sold came with a caveat from customers that said, "Oh, we have this thing coming up. We should probably do some merch." Now the tables have turned. When you're doing something, when your customer's doing something, where they're launching a big initiative, their merch game had better be strong. You're seeing this around Dunkin' Donuts, that the merch is becoming a part of their identity. This kind of opened my eyes when I saw the example from JSTOR. JSTOR is, if you're not familiar with it, it's a research tool actually for academics. And it's for us research nerds that absolutely love. I have an account with JSTOR, I'm embarrassed to say. But there was an article in Input talked about why academics have been begging for the return of JSTOR merch for years. This person posted on Twitter, "I want nothing else in the world but this JSTOR hat that ran on stock and never came back." It had 42,000 likes. And now JSTOR on their homepage actually pinned this tweet. Is it possible? Can JSTOR gear really be coming back next year? And they had a vote, and it's still sitting out there. And this is the quote I love from Input Magazine. It's taking pride in this interest that's growing up for a lot of millennials wasn't cool. Taking pride in this interest that growing up for a lot of millennials wasn't cool. A lot of people want to kind of lean into that aspect of themselves that they weren't able to lean into as much when they were growing up. So merch is this interesting connection point. We're at this point where the golden age of individual expression is meeting this great hunger for connection and belonging. And that's what merch can do. Merch is an emotional connection and conversation point. Many may not know when Yeti first launched their brand in the first few years, with every cooler shipped, Ryan and Roy, the founders, threw in a Yeti hat and a t-shirt to create a conversation around the product. Same thing is going on in all of the retail brands and the retail chains, from PF Chang's. This example I loved from the WWDC, which is Apple's developer conference. Apple has this amazing scholarship program that they have for students. And there was a student who finally got into Apple's developer program where he got a full ride scholarship to go to the developer conference, and he tweeted out this merch kit. So for those of you that are building merch kits, never forget that it's this moment right here that we're building for. And by the way, I hope you use all these examples with your clients as you present them. That had 47,000 likes. Kits and gear that we create on behalf of our brands for an emotional connection point do work, as you know. Number 4, we're going to move through the rest of these fast. Merch is the new affordable luxury. This is my favorite copy from an article that was in Vice magazine. A famous tote bag company, The New Yorker, has become so successful they now also produce a weekly magazine filled with investigative journalism, restaurant reviews, and satirical essays. This bag has become, as we know, a major status symbol. When The New Yorker published their article, The Cotton Tote Crisis, they had not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but they had 14 tote bags on their website. Ritz-Carlton doesn't need to advertise, but they finally released their own merch collection that Vogue pointed out and said, "Welcome to the era of cult hotel merchandise." Same thing going with Tesla. These big brands create these unique brand experiences around merch as well, leading one style magazine to ask the question, is merch the new black? Which is a great way to put it. One thing that I've noted is that merch is the concrete symbol of the abstract brand experience. When you look at Tesla and what they did with the merchandise that connects with the owner, it's a really cool concrete symbol of an abstract experience. Number 5, merch is now leading trends, actually creating trends versus following trends. You might have seen this article about the Zismacore. You've probably seen a hyper locality with merchandise. One person put it this way: in Cut Magazine. On a Zoom recently, a friend who definitely doesn't follow fashion mentioned that he'd been out buying pita bread and found himself momentarily paralyzed while looking at something pinned to the wall of the market, unable to answer a question: why do I covet this not particularly attractive t-shirt from Sahadi's? And of course, the reason is we are all about individual expression and creating this connection and belonging. And all of these terms that the Atlantic pointed out that's happening in the fashion world, where people are identifying with a tribe, whether it's village core, norm core, cottage core, angel core. Marion Park noticed this, that what's important to note about the abundance of microcores is this great movement in youth culture towards niche aesthetics and subcultures. When White Castle wanted to rebrand their staff uniforms and celebrate their anniversary, they reached out to Telfar Clemens, the famous designer, to create their new uniform and merch experience. In fact, notice what's happening with a lot of big brands and designers. Many of them are recruiting high-end fashion designers to redesign their merch collection. So there's a secret for you. If you're working with big brands, it may be that you need to also partner with local, semi-famous or famous designers to create merch collections. It's something you can do that's a very unique experience for those big clients that you work for. All right, number 6, merch is a one-to-one medium that drives social impact. This is another big change that's actually happening. I know you get many requests around sustainability merchandise, and we are very passionate about it as well. But when I interviewed, there's no audio behind this, I'm just showing you the video. When I interviewed Davis Smith with Cotopaxi, one of the things he noted that the Cotopaxi gear had this, what he called supply chain philanthropy, that as they are sourcing product all the way from the end, from the product, the way it's made, to the actual families and lives that are impacted all through the supply chain, is what they call supply chain philanthropy. So it's a really big deal. Merch is no longer just making a negative impact. It's actually creating a positive impact in the lives of others. And these stories actually abound right now. This is a campaign put out by our friends at Thumbprint that sent me this beautiful blanket, and they sourced the blanket from Peru. Here's a brief story about that. Love that. I also had the privilege of interviewing Seth Godin here recently. Many of you may have seen this interview on his new book about sustainability. And we were talking about how merch can impact the world all the way from design through the materials itself. I want to play this really brief clip for you here real quick about my conversation with Seth. I know that you're passionate about too. You recently posted about a simple bottle design at a Hilton you stayed at that demonstrated how poor design likely ends up creating landfill. Many of us are now awakening to the fact that the materials we use are not the only way we can make an impact, but rather impact starts at design and intent. Can you share more thoughts on that?
Right. So let's go back to systems. The hotels are only a couple hundred years old. And the expectation in the last only 30 years is that when you went to a hotel, there would be an individual sealed bottle of shampoo for you. Well, that decision by one designer at one hotel chain led to, I don't know, 100 million, a billion bottles being created. They could have made a different decision, which is the standard's going to be there's going to be a pump on the wall, and you're going to press a button and some shampoo is going to come out and we're going to refill it every year, right? That was a choice that led to a system. And so my blog post was about a particular series of choices that well-meaning, hardworking people at Hilton and Cisco made that led to a bottle that was hard to open, hard to read, hard to use, and ended up in large quantities in the trash. And this industry that you're in, that Mark is in, has some stars in it, but it also has a whole bunch of people who are victims of the system who are making really cheap, crappy stuff that's produced offshore in large quantity because your clients want the cheapest thing they can put their logo on that lasts for 4 minutes and gets thrown in the garbage. Even if we don't care about the climate impact, as a marketer, that's lazy work. And just letting the client have what they want, which is a checkbox, isn't you being a professional. There are other items, I still have them, that you got a tote bag 18 years ago at a Fast Company conference. It's one of your treasured possessions, and it replaces hundreds of bags that you could have used and disposed of. Did it cost Alan and Bill an extra $2 to make that bag? Yeah, it did, but I'm glad they did. Someone advised them, don't make crap. Make something that's going to stick around because it's your brand that's on it.
Mm. I loved that chat with Seth. I just want to share that with you real quick because we can make such an impact all the way from design, all the way through to the materials. Another way that folks are making impact, many of you probably saw the UPS shop, which was absolutely amazing. They partnered with a designer and created their first ever limited edition collection at New York Fashion Week, 100% of proceeds helping up and coming Black designers. That was a beautiful program. Finally, a few final notes. Every brand wants to be a lifestyle brand for their tribe, for their communities, for their fans. Microsoft recently dropped a collection. Yes, I just said Microsoft recently dropped a capsule collection called Hardware, designed by Gavin Matthew, which actually he and I'll be recording an interview soon. And he's a designer out of LA, and they partnered. He's doing some amazing work, and he created this collection for Microsoft. And it's another example of what's happening in the world of merchandise, what's happening in the world of fashion and design, along with big brands as well. I encourage you to go check that out when you have some time. You're seeing this happen, by the way, with all kinds of big brands. I hope you have the Whataburger store because it's an amazing store. I hope somebody has it here. You'll notice that folks like Glossywear even create a brand within their brand to celebrate their branded merchandise. Every brand is a band or should aspire to be a brand. All right. Merch has become, one more time, synonymous with products that people will pay a premium for creating skyrocket demand, scarcity, radical brand love, allowing individual expression and building bonds of tribal identity. Merch is no longer simply advertising. It's the new press release. It creates cult-like fervor. It's an emotional connection. It's the new affordable luxury. It's now leading trends, creating trends versus following trends, falls under a bigger umbrella called brand expression, and it's the concrete symbol of the abstract experience. The last thing I want to leave you with is that we often tend to see the industry through a corporate lens only, and it's a $26 billion industry roughly. But when you look at licensed sports merchandise, that's $5.4 billion, it has to be far more than that. Global TV and movie merch, just as examples alone. The question is not we're a $26 billion industry. It's possible that we're a $500 billion industry. And the question is now, how do we see ourselves as we sell merchandise to our clients moving forward? Selling thoughtless merch is easy. I know that this is true for all of you. Making intentional merch memorable, collectible, and keepable is really hard. Finally, a scorecard for you and your team. Here's your branded merch report card. Kool Moe Dee created a report card and graded his fellow rappers. And I thought it was a really cool example of how we can evaluate our own work. Margins. Do your margins reflect today's merch madness? How about design? Is design a priority or an afterthought? Trends. Are you creating trends with your client? Or are you merely following trends? Because now is the time for you to create trends that are unique to you and your client. How about ingenuity? Are you creating experiences that no one else can emulate? Because that's actually what our industry does really well, is they take an average, ordinary product that anyone can get and they create unique experience that no one else can emulate. Shops. Shops is a really big transition here. Are you selling shirts? Or are you creating a fan factory? A shop is a great example to create that brand obsession. And finally, services, whether it's creative, kitting, shop creation, consultation, or giving away the best part of your work for free. All right. Action steps, just a few I want you to think about. What I did today, you can walk through with your clients through high profile examples. Do you begin with purpose and not product? Change the way you talk with customers about the brand you experience that you create. And finally, use tools like shops, engage designers as an important part of your strategy, and stop categorizing the work you do into B2B versus B2C or corporate versus that other work, because it is basically all the same. Finally, good marketing requires fearlessness. So I hope you go and create some wonderful things. Thanks for your patience as we blazed through this. I'm going to welcome to the stage my good friend, Aaron Kucheraway. I just said stage, like we're
Whew,
in front of
yeah,
10,000 people. Did you like
yeah.
that,
Well, I
Aaron?
mean,
Welcome, my friend.
whenever you're involved, Bobby, there's always some sort of stage. So that's like fast
Yeah.
and furious, Bobby.
Let me do an actual introduction for you, Aaron. So thank you everyone for putting up with that blazing presentation. I hope you got a few ideas that's going to help you. Aaron is not only the vice president of success at commonsku, but he is an amazing leader for. He's going to hate this part. He's an amazing leader for his team. He works with so many distributors that he has an interesting perspective on the industry that no one else has, in my opinion. And he's going to show us what the best of the best use commonsku as a way to create more efficiency in their business, to create spectacular experiences and more. So take it away, my friend Aaron.
So you can definitely tell that Bobby's been hanging out with Canadians based off of how fast he's talking, right? You can tell that he's really like he's getting used to that. He's getting used to that pace. Well, I appreciate.
Right.
I do have a little bit of an interesting perspective. I'll agree with you on that one, Bobby. But it may just be because I'm very sarcastic and I can't. Like, it's just how I look at things, I think. So, Bobby kind of tapped me to jump on this one with him just to run through some maybe examples of kind of how other distributorships are using commonsku, and run through some pro tips. Everybody likes seeing some hacks on how people use the system in maybe a more interesting way, and just talking a little bit about efficiency and workflow. I think that's one thing that commonsku does really, really well, is help make workflows more efficient. And as companies that come to us a lot of the time are trying to scale, whether they're a 2-person company trying to get to $500,000, or they are a 40-person distributorship trying to make it to that 40 million, 50 million level, there's always kind of efficiencies that can be gained in changing process, and that's where commonsku really comes in. So I'm going to kind of run through. I have a couple of different things to show you, and I will share my screen here so you don't have to just stare at my black eye. If you're curious how I got the black eye, you have to email me. It's a good story. It's not actually I got hit in the face with a frisbee. Slightly embarrassing. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about, really basic thing with commonsku itself, is just efficiency inside of the system is really about not only trying to make a scalable process, which comes down with actually having your process written out. It's always a really interesting exercise for us, whether it's a current distributorship that's on commonsku or one that's looking at commonsku, of actually having people say out loud what your process is. Because I think in your mind, a lot of the times people think it may be a little bit more efficient than it is. And when you actually start to write down all the steps and all the touch points that you have with an order, and the amount of back and forth an order might have through an organization, that you start to realize that there may be some things that you can change and maybe make things a little bit more efficient. I think an old school way of thinking about orders and scaling is throwing people at a problem. And one of the things that I've talked to a lot of distributors about recently has been, instead of throwing people at a problem, starting to throw technology at that problem so you can increase efficiency without having to increase headcount. One of the things that's really baked into our system that we find that companies do when they're starting to scale is specializing in roles. So inside of our system, if you're familiar with commonsku, you know that you're looking at a project on my screen right now. If you're not, this is essentially a basic project for a distributorship in our system. But being able to specialize roles based off of what people are strong at. You have hunters, you have farmers, you have people who are really good with vendors. But the more that you have somebody do something on an order from start to finish, the less good they're going to be at all of those things. They're going to be okay at some of those things. So by specializing roles, it allows people to not only join your organization and maybe scale up a little bit faster in their role, but it also allows people to get really good at that thing. So inside of commonsku itself, you obviously have that broken up with things like having a client rep that's going to be kind of that outside salesperson who owns a relationship with the client, and having them maybe pass off to more of that inside rep role where that person is the one who's really doing the back and forth with the client. So you have that outside client rep who's pulling in the business and then handing it off over to that inside rep who's actually able to do the back and forth with the client and communicate with them on the presentation, the estimate, and the order, so the sales rep can go out and get the next sale. For us, that efficiency is kind of baked all the way through, like I mentioned, where you get down into something like purchase orders. One of the first roles that I see people hiring for as they're scaling is getting their salespeople out of dealing with vendors. It's amazing when you talk to an owner about when they have their salespeople handling POs and orders, and then you talk to the people who are actually handling their clients and the POs. And I bet you if you have salespeople that are doing that now, if you ask them how much of their day is spent as a salesperson dealing with vendors, I would guess that it is more than a quarter of their day is spent dealing with POs and stuff like that. So breaking that role out into something where, say, you have a dedicated person or multiple people that are handling just purchase orders, sending those out, or dealing with the vendor, making sure everything's going to happen on time as it should, will free up those salespeople for that hour, 2 hours a day to go and sell. And selling is essentially what leads to scaling. And that's kind of baked into our system here with the production rep, of having that handoff at the production stage, then having that person really manage the PO all the way through. And then obviously we have that going through into the finance side of things, where invoicing the client can happen through, the actual finance section. And so what we have actually done recently, and this is, I would say, about a month and a half ago, is we've broken our navigation up now into role-based navigation. So built for scaling, where you have kind of the sales section where your salespeople, your hunters, and your farmers are able to work, an area where your production team is able to go in and manage their side of things. And then as your production team is updating POs, that is essentially able to update the order and queue it for invoicing for financing. Or for finance, obviously. So invoicing and billing and stuff like that. So the first part is specializing your role and trying to define people roles down and try not to stretch them too thin. Now, kind of the next thing, I call this have a handle, but one of the other kind of recent updates that we've had in the system over the course of the last 6 months or so was the release of our new dashboards. Every role inside of commonsku has its own individual dashboard that is based off of that role. So each salesperson has their own dashboard, production has a dashboard, so does finance and management. The idea with the dashboards were really to create a spot that people can jump off from. We always got to ask the question of, hey, where do I start my day in commonsku? And we were always like, oh, you can start it here, but this is the best place to go. It depends kind of what you're trying to do. So we really wanted to kind of crush that and be like, this is where you go. And that's really what the dashboards are meant to do. It's meant to allow you to have a handle on what you need to be working on. So whether you're a salesperson who is jumping into commonsku for the first time, that you're like, how am I doing? What do I have? What's in the system right now? That's the whole point of the dashboard. So being able to see what orders you have and how many orders you have in the different stages between the order getting approved by the client and getting invoiced to the client. There's lots that can happen in between there. So for a salesperson, being able to see how many orders they have, how many they have within each stage, and how those are progressing along. How salespeople are filling their pipelines in terms of presentations and estimates, and how they're able to forecast that into the next couple of months based off of what they think the value of those opportunities are. So getting an idea of what they have in their pre-sale bucket, not stuff they've already sold, but stuff that they're hoping to sell, that they're working with the client right now to get it to the sales stage. And then looking at things like what's stuck, right? This is by far one of the most common questions I get at commonsku, which is, how can I tell that something has slipped between the cracks? Everyone's worst nightmare. Well, adding things like stuck in stage and being able to look at this to see what orders are not moving, what orders are stuck in a certain stage for 30 days or more. For example, this order has been sitting as ready to be invoiced for 30 days or more. So I'm probably going to tap accounting and say, hey, what's going on with this? But the new dashboard feature really kind of allows people to have a handle on their role and allow them to kind of see what they have in the system in that one spot, how they're projecting kind of going into the following month. So you can see here, I'm able to see, how much I have in invoices, orders that should be closing this month, pre-sales that should be closing this month, how I'm filling my pipeline for the next couple of months. And then my favorite thing, honestly, has been these action tiles. It's been by far the biggest piece of feedback that we got, how useful these are, which is basically telling you projects that need your attention, stuff that are missing in hand state, risk of missing in hand states, they're missing budgets, or they're missing, they're missing critical pieces of information that a salesperson needs to be filling out. I think ultimately we created this dashboard system as a way for people to jump off and start inside of the system, but it also becomes like a way to do one-on-one, where as a manager or as an owner, you're able to use the system and essentially pull up any individual's dashboard. So for example, I can pull up Erin Burley, who's one of my colleagues, and I can see all of her specific dashboard-based stuff. So I can see exactly what her dashboard looks like. I'm not having to pull 10, 20 different reports to see what she has in different aspects of the system. I can see everything kind of in one spot. So having a handle, getting used to those new dashboards is a big thing now that we've kind of switched everybody over, but getting an understanding of what information is in here and how you can utilize that is a massive, massive efficiency piece. In terms of the third one that I have on my list, which Bobby alluded to, I think if you have an efficient client, then you become an efficient distributor. And there's lots of ways to be an efficient distributor and make your client more efficient. And there's kind of like 2 or 3 things I think that, or 2 or 3 little tips in here that I think are really useful for that. The first one being portals. We released this feature quite a while ago, I would say about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, but it's a portal that you're able to build for specific clients or for all of your clients. So this is an example of one that we've done for Microsoft. So if I'm the distributor, I can send this to my contacts at Microsoft. They can basically click into the portal itself, and they get this nice little splash screen where I do all these custom graphics. This is all kind of custom work that we've done and has been built through commonsku. And then you have the ability to link in shops, which Bobby was talking about a little bit earlier. But I think the cool part about this, and where a client can get really efficient, is on 2 pieces. One is finding out what's going on with their own orders. How many times do you have to pick up a phone and tell a client what's going on with their order right now? Well, you can, if you're able to provide a client portal to them, the client can actually click into their project section and see a list of every order that they have in the system right now. And they can actually tap view project, and they can see exactly what's going on with that project in real time. So it takes them down into a specific portal about that project. They can view the presentation. They can view the email you sent them. If it's a project that actually has purchase orders and has been like moving through the chains, they can go through and they can view what's going on with the purchase orders all at a click. So if I'm the client at Microsoft, I can click in and see, oh, hey, my hoodies are in production right now. The enhanced date was, this day. So trying to give that information up front and give more access to that information will help make a more efficient client, which in turn makes you a more efficient distributor. So those portals are really useful, not only for giving your client access to their current projects in one single place, but it also makes it really easy for reorders. It allows your client to go in and look at anything that they've ordered from you where it's been completed, and then the client can actually go in and reorder directly themselves. You can't really get more efficient than that if the client's doing most of the work for you. So they can go and look at any order that they have on the system right now, and they can basically tap reorder. They can see exactly what they ordered last time, and they can submit a reorder to you, which generates the order for you automatically in the system, notifies the client rep, the sales rep on the account, and basically does 90% of the work. You can check it for pricing, fill out shipping, and then get it into production. So just trying to make that a little bit easier and reduce the friction, right? If you think about any time you've had to reorder something, you don't want to trade 5 text messages with somebody or trade 7 emails. If I want to reorder something from Amazon, I just go in and reorder it. So why can it not be the same in promo? So the client portal kind of allows you to do that with giving all that access to your client. The other part is shops. I'm not going to go into a big spiel about shops and the efficiencies that they offer, but I think one of the cool things that we're really seeing with shops right now is we're starting to see the marketing shop populating a lot more. If you're unfamiliar with our shop feature, basically you're able to build these shops, whether it's a company store, a aggregator store, so you have 1,000 orders that you want to aggregate into one master order, or you can build a marketing shop. And a marketing shop is really meant to replace those boring PDFs, right? I mean, I get them. I don't even sell stuff, but I get them from suppliers all the time where I get a PDF of like whatever their cool products are for that month. I think that's fine, but you know, PDFs are maybe like early 2000s. So how can we make that more efficient or make that cooler or make it more useful for your client? And that's really what a marketing shop does. It allows you to send a shop out like this one right here. I'm a big craft beer person, so this is a craft beer shop, but it allows you to create a shop with products on it and send it out to all of your clients. So we see a ton of distributors do this right now on commonsku, and I think it's a good proactive way to sell rather than a reactive way, where you have golf season, you have the holidays coming up, that you can create a marketing shop, send it out to all of your clients, and any of your clients can go in and order directly off the shop. And it allows them to go place the order, it generates the order in commonsku, low hanging fruit, but it's not a boring PDF that they can't interact with, right? It is an easy way to get this out to the client and get that low hanging fruit, easy order. We even see people take these shops and embed them on their own company website. So when a client goes to the site, they might have like the distributor might have a shop section, and they can click into that and they have a link to a bunch of different shops that they put up with graphics. So lots of interesting ways that this can be used, but the marketing shop is all about proactive selling, which I think is more important than ever right now, especially with supply chain stuff. And you know, the holidays right around the corner. By around the corner, I mean like four months from now. So getting efficient, creating efficiency with clients through portals, allowing them access to their information, being proactive with marketing shops, even your most basic presentation. I mean, if your team isn't doing this already, if you have a client that wants to just order stuff and you're sending them some ideas, send them a smart gallery, right? Our presentation style smart gallery allows the client to just order directly, right? So you send out the presentation to the client instead of them emailing you back saying, I want those pens with this, that you can just send them a smart gallery and the client can go in, look at the item, they can add it to an order, they fill out their sizes and colors that they want, and they just place the order right through the presentation, right? If it's a one-off, smart gallery is great for that, especially if they have those tech-savvy clients that don't really want to talk to anybody. They just want you to send over some ideas and place the order, right? So this allows you to cater it a little bit more to that client themselves. The kind of like, so that moving forward a little bit into some hacks, I'm just going to sneak in a couple because I know I only have 20 minutes or so. But in terms of hacks, I kind of like centered out 3 of my favorites. So the very first one is one that I've talked about a lot at commonsku universities, which again, if your team isn't utilizing this, or if you're a salesperson, you're not utilizing this, I recommend you start doing it, you know, in the next hour or so. But it's building out stock presentations. Go into your system, go into, you know, have your distributorship created as a client and go in and actually just build a presentation for yourself of your favorite things. Because then when a client asks you for ideas, you can create a presentation for that client. And instead of having to add your favorite jackets, your favorite shirts, your favorite pens, your favorite mugs, whatever, adding those from scratch through an ESP search, a Sage search, whatever, you can come in here and tap previous orders, and you can just look up your old presentation, your presentation of all your favorite items on here, right? So I can come in here and I can say, Aaron's favorite items. This is the presentation I did. There's all my favorite items in one quick, easy search. And I can basically just go boom, 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 pull all those items over, super easy, right? Now all those items are on my presentation and it's ready to go for the client. And they're probably a little bit amazed at how quickly you put that together. So if you haven't started to build out stock presentations for yourself, start doing that. It saves a ton of time on searching. It is a ridiculous stat that salespeople spend somewhere between an hour to 2 hours per day just searching for product. A lot of that time it's researching stuff. The second thing also has to do with products. This is a bit of a mind bender, but I try and get it out of people's heads that in commonsku, a product has to be a product. A product in our system, especially on a presentation, is actually just framework. It's framework for a picture, a title, and a description. And then you have the option to show pricing. So that means it could really be anything. It's like a slide, right? So you can use that for anything. So for example, this is a presentation I did for commonsku University a couple of years ago, where every hack that I showed at commonsku University, I created that as a product. So every hack has a title, has a description, has a photo. So I embedded some code of me doing a quick little video. It was right before my daughter's birthday. I don't always have a balloon arch up, but I embedded a quick little video at the top, and then I'm able to show all of the different hacks that I had here, and I created each hack as a product. This is the product's name, description, and photo. So getting your mind around, it doesn't have to be a product, but it's a way for you to present stuff. It's a way for you to present why it's great to work with you, as a new client, how things are going to work with you, what your orders are going to look like. It's also a great way to think about how you can draw information out of a client. So one of my favorite hacks is create a product in commonsku called the question, and then add in whatever questions you want to ask your client about what they're looking for. So for example, you send them a presentation that looks like this, where the client can see 3 essential things that say like, who's your audience? Tell me a bit about who the items were given to. And then your client can comment with their answer. And then they can go and they can answer the next question. This is the title, this is the description, this is the photo. What type of response do you want? And then they can go through and they can say, where's the event happening? So you can actually use the presentation to draw all the information out from the client themselves. And then the really cool part about this is if we go and look at that presentation, once you have your answers, you can actually just hide these questions and add all the products in. So now you have your questions with the answers in the same spot that you have all the items. So you can refer back to what their answers are, right? It's a really interesting way to use it, but it's getting your mind around it doesn't always have to be a product. What are unique ways to use this? The last one, in terms of hacks that I think has also been a big time saver for people comes out of the operations section, and it's this next action column. We added this about a year ago, and the next action column is essentially a way for you to tag a PO with like what needs to happen next. But I think the key word there is tag. What I mean by that is it allows you to tag the PO for anything. So you don't have to be tagging what needs to be happening next. You can be tagging this for, it's a back order, it's a rush PO. You can use these next actions for anything because they're reportable. So we have seen people use this to label POs that are a rush or POs that are stuck on back order. And then you can create a custom report that says, show me all of my POs that are tagged as a back order right now. And you can get that as a big report inside of commonsku. You can save it to your toolbar at the very top, and then you can constantly pull that so you can see what POs are moving in and out of back order. So it's a really, really interesting way to use the next action instead of using it as an action, using it as a tag. So last thing for me is I have 3 kind of like really quick pro tips for people of things that we've snuck into the system. My very first one is just use the tools. What is the difference between, that sounds like a really corny joke, but I promise it's not. What's the difference between a distributor on commonsku and like a power distributor on commonsku? Is using the tools. We come out with new stuff all of the time, like all of the time. Trust me, it's stressful for customer success, how much we release stuff. But it is crazy how often we come out with new stuff. So try and stay up to date on what things are new. A really good example of that is the decorator matrix. If you haven't started to use the decorator matrix inside of commonsku, it is an amazing feature that allows you to create your decorator pricing inside of the admin area. So whenever sales is going in and they want to fill out decoration pricing on apparel, that they can actually just refer to a matrix. So they can say that they want to use this decorator and they want this particular charge, and this is the number of colors, so they can see the pricing. Massive time saver, but not something everybody uses because it takes a little bit of setup. So the first thing is use the tools. Check the Learn tab, check what's new, make sure your team is using that. If you're not sure, set up a maximize call with the support team so we can run through all the newest features with you to find out what your team is utilizing versus not utilizing, because there's probably something in there that you don't know about. The second thing is setting goals. This is also fairly new and we kind of snuck it in here and refers back to the actual dashboards that I started off with. you do have the ability to go in here and set targets. And from a management or owner standpoint, you can go in and edit targets, and you're able to set both booked targets and invoice targets for each one of your reps. This can be found in the management analytics section, and you can come in and select a rep. You can see how much they invoiced last year, how much they booked last year, and then you're able to set their goals for this year and through to next year if you want to do that. So this is just another way of tracking things, being able to set stuff up for your sales reps so they can be successful. But another one of those features that we just kind of snuck in that maybe not a lot of people are utilizing or are totally aware of yet. And the last one, I'm surprised that Bobby hasn't mentioned this, is get connected. Obviously, we're all about a connected workflow at commonsku, not only from connecting you with your clients a little bit closer through things like portals and shops, but through promo standards. If you're unfamiliar with promo standards, I'll let you Google it. But inside of commonsku, if you go to our supplier section, every supplier here that has these dots are available through promo standards. Promo standards allows you to do things like live inventory checks, check in on your POs in real time. Those are all features that are available through promo standards. And we're starting to see more vendors coming on with EPOs, meaning you're able to submit a PO electronically to the vendor. Nobody is sitting and rekeying it for you. So inside of commonsku, if you check your supplier section, if these dots are not lit up, you are not connected with that vendor, but it's available. And I think this is generally a no-brainer in that if you get connected with these vendors, you're able to do things like real-time checks on your POs. So on your production report, you have the promo standards icon. So you can just go and click on that. And when you click on that, you're able to see information like this, like what's going on with your PO at this vendor right now. When did they update it last? When it ships out, you're able to see things like what are all the tracking IDs? When were they scanned by UPS? How are they shipping? What warehouse did they come from? You can click on one button and see all that information for that vendor instead of sitting on hold for 10 minutes or having them look up the exact same information. I go back to the Amazon reference at the beginning, where if I want to place a reorder, I can just go reorder right off my account. If I want to see what's going on with my order, I don't pick up the phone and call Amazon. I don't even think they have a phone number I can call. So why do we do that with vendors, right? So looking at this as a massive efficiency, definitely a pro tip, but on that back end side, being able to track your purchase orders, cutting down the phone calls, getting connected through promo standards, using our connected workflow here, really help build that efficiency through the production report. Fast and furious. Bobby, that's all I got. You want to come back?
I am. Hey, Aaron. I want to say this too about connected suppliers. I have never heard so many big suppliers talk about that the next advancement happening in just the branded merch world in general is technology. And if this industry is ever going to get disrupted, it's going to come through that technology side. Not the, we always thought it was the e-commerce side, but it's not the front end, it's the back end. So it's a big deal. And I've just noticed lately that the largest suppliers that are working both on the retail and wholesale side have made this a really, really important part of their initiatives moving forward. So the whole connected thing is such a big deal. It's a big frontier.
I think it's such an interesting thing of, we talk to distributors that might have, they have 8 salespeople, but and then they have 4 people in production or something like that, which is not the ideal ratio. That it's like, because they're using antiquated technology that they're having to use that it's that much more person power to get updates on POs that they're having to add more and more people rather than add tech so they can scale those people and make them more efficient within that role.
Yeah. And the last thing, and obviously we sell a technology product, but it really is a big thing that's happening. I think it's a huge paradigm shift going on in the industry, but I think the industry is shifting from being a very proactive strategy-based business, or from being a production purely sourcing, which we do really, really well, to a strategy-driven industry. And all of these tools that are going to help our clients think faster, make decisions quicker are important. So hey, my friend, thanks for joining us. And thank you all for being with us today. We really are glad you took the time out of your busy calendar to do this. And we can't wait to see you again. Reach out to us on social. Reach out to me, Bobby@commonsku.com, if we can ever do anything for you. So thanks for being here. A special place in my heart for my reciprocity friends. And we'll see you next time. Take care.